We're alone. Let's do what's necessary, said the Apache woman who was given to a rancher as a joke. The Arizona sun beat down mercilessly on Mesquite Ridge Station when Marcus Hewitt first laid eyes on the woman who would change everything. Dust devils danced across the platform as the afternoon train screeched to a halt, belching black smoke into the pale sky. Marcus stood apart from the gathering crowd, hat pulled low, trying to be invisible. He'd come only because the telegram had been insistent. His presence was required. When the doors opened, she emerged, an Apache woman with eyes that burned like coals, wrapped in a threadbare blanket, barefoot on the scorching platform. The crowd muttered and shifted. Some laughed. Others spat. Marcus felt his stomach turn to lead. Behind her, a Union soldier in dusty blue pushed her forward with the butt of his rifle. She stumbled but caught herself, chin raised in defiance despite her chains. Marcus recognized the setup immediately. This was Thornton's work, his former commanding officer, who'd never forgiven him for refusing to burn that Apache village 5 years ago. The envelope pressed into his hand confirmed it, the colonel's handwriting unmistakable, each word dripping with mockery. A gift for the man, too soft for war. Perhaps she'll teach you what mercy is really worth. The crowd expected Marcus to refuse her, to send her back, to prove he was one of them. Instead, he stepped forward, the sound of his boots on wood cutting through the murmurs. He met Ayanna's eyes just for a moment, and saw, not fear, but calculation. She was measuring him, deciding if he was another monster or something different. Marcus reached for the chain, connecting her wrists. "Let her go," he said quietly to the soldier. The man laughed. "She's property, not livestock, Hewitt." Marcus's hand moved to his holster. "I said let her go." The laughter died. The soldier unlocked the chains with shaking fingers, then retreated to the train. As the locomotive pulled away, Marcus turned to Ayanna. "Can you ride?" She nodded once, suspicious. He gestured toward his horse. "It's 3 hours to my ranch." "You'll stay in the barn until we figure this out." He expected protest or questions, but she simply walked toward the horse with dignity intact despite everything. The ride to Red Canyon Valley passed in silence. Marcus didn't know what to say, and Ayanna seemed content not to speak. The land stretched out endlessly on all sides, red earth, scattered mesquite, and distant mesas shimmering in the heat. By the time they reached his ranch, the sun was bleeding orange across the horizon. The homestead was modest: a wooden cabin, a barn, a corral with a single horse, and a stone well that had taken him 6 months to dig. Marcus helped Ayanna dismount. "There's water in the well," he said, pointing. "The barn has hay and blankets. I'll bring food." Inside the cabin, Marcus lit an oil lamp and stared at Thornton's letter again. Every word was designed to wound. The colonel knew Marcus had left the military because he couldn't stomach the slaughter anymore. Sending Ayanna wasn't generosity, it was a test, a trap, a way to prove Marcus would fail at mercy just like he'd failed at being a soldier. But as Marcus looked out the window toward the barn, he made a decision. He wouldn't play Thornton's game. He'd give Ayanna her freedom to leave or stay. Whatever happened next would be her choice, not his. That night, Marcus brought bread, dried meat, and a canteen to the barn. Ayanna sat in the corner, her eyes tracking his every movement. He set the food down and backed away. "You're not a prisoner here," he said. "Stay if you want, leave if you want. I won't stop you either way." She stared at him for a long moment, then spoke in halting English. "Why you do this?" Marcus considered the question. "Because I've seen enough people treated like things. You're not a thing." She didn't thank him, but something in her expression softened slightly. For 3 days, they barely spoke. Ayanna stayed in the barn. Marcus worked the land, fixing fence posts and hauling water. He left food by the barn door each morning and found the plates empty each evening. On the 4th morning, he found Ayanna by the well, attempting to draw water. The pulley was stuck, rusted from disuse. She struggled with it, frustration evident in her movements. Marcus approached slowly. "It sticks," he said. "You have to hit it first," he demonstrated, striking the pulley mechanism with his palm, then pulling smoothly. Water splashed into the bucket. Ayanna watched, then nodded. "Thank you." Her English was improving. Marcus handed her the bucket. "You don't have to stay in the barn. The cabin has a loft." She studied him. "You trust me?" He almost laughed. "Should I?" For the first time, a hint of a smile crossed her face. No. But that afternoon, she moved her blanket to the cabin loft. It wasn't friendship yet, but it was a beginning. That evening, as the sun set and painted the canyon walls crimson, Marcus sat on the porch and Ayanna sat in the doorway. Neither spoke, but the silence felt less hostile. In the distance, a coyote howled, and Ayanna's head tilted, listening. Days turned into weeks. A routine emerged. Marcus would wake at dawn to tend the horse and check the irrigation channels he dug toward the dried riverbed. Ayanna would grind corn or mend the tears in his shirts with surprising skill. They worked separately but in the same space, like two animals cautiously sharing a watering hole. One morning, Marcus found her crouched in the dirt behind the cabin, digging with her bare hands. "What are you doing?" he asked. She looked up. "Medicine plants. If I find seeds." He fetched a shovel. "What kind?" She listed names he didn't recognize in Apache, then tried English. "Sage." "Yucca. For healing." Marcus nodded. "I'll bring seeds from town." The next time Marcus rode to Mesquite Ridge, he felt the town's hostility like a physical thing. People stared. The shopkeeper refused to sell to him at first, muttering about Indian lovers. Only Sam Foster, the blacksmith, treated him with decency. "You've got guts, Hewitt," Sam said, hammering iron, "but you're making enemies." Marcus bought supplies and seeds Ayanna had described. "I didn't ask for this situation," he replied. Sam looked at him seriously. "Maybe not, but how you handle it, that's on you, and people are watching." Back at the ranch, Marcus gave Ayanna the seeds. Her eyes widened genuine surprise, and she took them carefully. "You did this?" He shrugged. "You said you needed them." That evening, Ayanna planted the first seeds in the small plot she'd cleared. Marcus watched from the porch as she whispered something in her language over the disturbed earth. When she finished, she walked over and sat on the porch steps near him. "My mother was healer," she said quietly. "Soldiers came, burned everything, killed her." Marcus felt his chest tighten. "I'm sorry." Ayanna met his eyes. "You were soldier. It wasn't a question." "Yes," he admitted. "Different regiment, different time. But yes." She was quiet for a long moment. "You kill Apache?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Marcus wanted to lie, to make himself better than he was, but he owed her truth. "Yes, I followed orders. Then one day, I couldn't anymore, so I left." Ayanna absorbed this. "You have regret?" "Every day," he said simply. She nodded slowly. "Regret is not enough. But it is start." She stood and went inside, leaving him alone with the night sounds and the weight of his past. But the next morning, he found a cup of herbal tea by his bedroll. Ayanna didn't mention it, but he understood. It was her way of saying she'd heard him. As autumn approached, the desert cooled and the skies grew dramatic with distant storms that rarely brought rain. Marcus and Ayanna fell into an easier rhythm. She taught him Apache words for plants and animals. He taught her more English and how to handle the rifle in case predators came near the livestock. They were not friends, yet the divide between them still yawned too wide, but they were no longer strangers. One evening, thunder rumbled across the canyon, and both stepped outside to watch the lightning crack across purple clouds. "Beautiful," Ayanna said. Marcus nodded. "Dangerous, too." She glanced at him. "All beautiful things are." Then Sheriff Callahan arrived. He rode up at midday, his face red from sun and exertion. "Hewitt," he called, "we need to talk." Marcus met him in the yard, Ayanna watching from the doorway. "What's this about?" Callahan dismounted, uncomfortable. "Town council's concerned. They say you're harboring an Indian without proper documentation." Marcus's jaw tightened. "She's not a criminal." She has nowhere else to go. Callahan sighed. I know, but folks are nervous. They remember the Apache wars. They think she's dangerous. Marcus stepped closer. Then folks are ignorant. She's done nothing wrong. The sheriff looked past Marcus to Ayanna. Is that true, girl? You planning trouble? Ayanna stepped forward, her voice clear. I plan to live. That is all. Callahan seemed surprised she spoke English. He scratched his neck, uncertain. Look, I don't want problems. Just keep things quiet, Hewitt. Don't give people reasons to talk. Marcus's voice was hard. People will talk no matter what. Tell them to mind their own business. Callahan mounted his horse, shaking his head. You're making this harder than it needs to be. As he rode off, Ayanna spoke softly. He fears me. Marcus turned. He fears what he doesn't understand. She smiled sadly. Then he will always fear me. That night, neither could sleep. Marcus sat by the fire cleaning his rifle. Ayanna descended from the loft and sat across from him. You protect me, she said. Why? He looked up. Because it's right. She leaned forward. You lose friends. Lose respect. Why? Marcus set down the rifle. I spent years doing what was easy instead of what was right. Cost me everything that mattered. I won't make that mistake again. Ayanna's expression softened. You are strange man, Marcus Hewitt. It was the first time she'd used his name. He smiled faintly. So I've been told. They sat together until the fire burned low. Speaking of small things, her childhood before the wars, his life as a failed soldier, the strange beauty of the desert. When Ayanna finally climbed back to the loft, Marcus realized something had shifted. The walls between them had lowered, just a little. Outside, the coyotes sang their ancient songs, and for the first time in years, Marcus didn't feel entirely alone. The canyon wind carried the scent of distant rain, and in the loft above, Ayanna whispered a prayer in her mother's tongue, not for the dead, but for the living. Winter arrived with shocking cold. The desert, so brutal in summer, became a place of freezing nights and crystalline mornings. Marcus and Ayanna worked together now, weatherproofing the cabin and stockpiling firewood. One evening, as Marcus returned from hauling logs, he found Ayanna standing at the canyon's edge, staring at the distant mountains. What do you see? He asked. She didn't turn. My people's land, before lines were drawn. Marcus stood beside her. Do you want to go back? Try to find them. She was quiet. No people left to find, all scattered, broken. Her voice cracked. I am last leaf on dead tree. Marcus felt something twist in his chest. You're not dead. Neither is the tree. Sometimes things grow back. Ayanna turned to him, tears in her eyes. You say pretty words, but world is not pretty. He met her gaze. No, it's not, but that doesn't mean we stop trying. She studied his face, searching for lies and finding none. Then, impulsively, she reached out and touched his hand. Just for a moment. Her fingers were ice cold. Marcus covered her hand with his other palm, warming it. Neither spoke. The wind howled around them, but in that moment, they were both anchored. Then came the night everything changed. Marcus woke to shouting and the smell of smoke. He grabbed his rifle and rushed outside. 3 figures on horseback circled the cabin, torches in hand. One threw his torch onto the barn roof. Come out! Indian lover! The voice yelled. Marcus recognized it, Dale Murphy, a ranch hand from town known for his hatred. Get off my property! Marcus shouted. The men laughed. Another torch landed near the well. Flames licked at the dry wood. Marcus aimed his rifle, but before he could fire, Ayanna burst from the cabin with a bucket of water, racing toward the barn. No! Marcus yelled, but she didn't stop. The riders noticed her. One spurred his horse forward, reaching for her. Marcus fired a warning shot into the air. The horse reared, and the rider fell cursing. The other 2 riders hesitated. In that moment, Sam Foster appeared from the darkness on his own horse, shotgun raised. That's enough, Sam roared. This is cold-blooded arson, Murphy. I'll testify to it. The riders exchanged looks, then fled into the night. Sam dismounted and helped Marcus and Ayanna extinguish the fires. The barn was damaged, but not destroyed. As the last embers died, Marcus turned to Ayanna. She was shaking, covered in soot. Without thinking, he pulled her close. She stiffened, then collapsed against him, exhausted. Sam looked at them both. "This won't be the last time," he warned. "You need to be ready." Marcus nodded, his arms still around Ayanna. "We will be." After Sam left, Marcus insisted Ayanna rest inside. He stayed on the porch, rifle across his lap, watching the darkness. Near dawn, Ayanna emerged with coffee. She handed him a cup and sat beside him. "You could have died," she said. "So could you," he replied. She smiled faintly. "We are both stubborn," he laughed, "despite everything." "Yeah, we are." As the sun rose, painting the canyon in shades of gold and crimson, Ayanna leaned her head against his shoulder. Marcus held very still, afraid to break the moment. "Thank you," she whispered, "for staying." Days later, Colonel Thornton himself arrived. He rode in with 2 soldiers, his uniform immaculate despite the dust. Marcus met him in the yard, Ayanna standing visible in the doorway. "Barrett," Thornton drawled. "I heard about your little adventure. Thought I'd see how my gift is working out." Marcus's hands clenched. "She's not a gift. She's a person." Thornton smiled coldly. "Oh, I know. That's what makes it so amusing. You, protecting a savage. After all your moralizing about mercy, here you are, proving you're just as weak as I thought." Marcus stepped forward. "If standing up for someone defenseless is weakness, then I'll take weakness over whatever you call strength." Thornton's smile vanished. "Careful, Hewitt. That woman is government property. I could take her back to the reservation right now." Ayanna spoke from the doorway, her voice ringing clear. "I am nobody's property. Not yours. Not government. I stay here by choice." Thornton turned to her, eyes glittering. "You have no choices, girl." Marcus moved between them. "She has every choice. And if you try to take her, you'll have to go through me." The 2 soldiers shifted uncomfortably. Thornton's hand moved toward his pistol. The air grew electric with tension. Then another voice called out, "Problem here, Colonel?" Sheriff Callahan rode in, flanked by Sam Foster and 3 other townsmen. Callahan looked tired but determined. "I got word there might be trouble." Thornton reassessed the situation. He was outnumbered. Slowly, he smiled. "No trouble, Sheriff. Just visiting an old friend." His eyes locked on Marcus. "But this isn't over, Hewitt. Not by a long shot." He mounted his horse. "Enjoy your little experiment while it lasts." As Thornton rode away, the tension broke. Sam clapped Marcus on the possum shoulder. "You've got guts, I'll give you that." Callahan looked at Ayanna. "Ma'am, you're welcome to stay long, as there's no trouble." She nodded solemnly. "There will be no trouble from me." That night, as the stars blazed overhead, Marcus and Ayanna sat by the fire. "You made enemy today," she said. "I made that enemy years ago," Marcus replied. "Today, I just stopped pretending otherwise." Ayanna poked the fire with a stick. "You could still send me away. Be safe." He looked at her, the firelight dancing in her dark eyes. "I don't want safe. I want right." She held his gaze. "Right is dangerous." He smiled. "Then I'll be dangerous." Something passed between them, then a recognition, a connection deeper than words. Ayanna reached out and took his hand. "Thank you, Marcus, for choosing me." His throat tightened. "Thank you, Ayanna, for letting me." As winter deepened, their bond grew stronger. They worked side by side rebuilding the barn, planting Ayanna's medicine garden, and preparing for spring. Marcus taught Ayanna to read English using old newspapers. She taught him Apache prayers and stories. One evening, as snow began to fall, a rare gift in the desert, they stood together, watching the white flakes drift down. Ayanna laughed, catching snowflakes on her tongue like a child. Marcus watched her, his heart aching with something he couldn't name. When she turned and saw his expression, she grew still. "What?" she asked softly. He shook his head. "Nothing. Everything." She stepped closer. You look at me different now. He swallowed hard. Do I? She nodded. Like I matter. His voice was rough. You do matter. She reached up and touched his face, her fingers tracing the scar on his cheek. You matter too. The space between them felt charged, inevitable. Marcus cupped her face gently. Ayanna. She silenced him by pressing her forehead to his. I know, she whispered. I know. They stood there in the falling snow, two broken souls finding wholeness in each other. When they finally kissed, it was soft and tentative, a question and an answer all at once. Spring arrived, and with it, new challenges. Thornton had spread word that Marcus was a traitor and Ayanna dangerous. Some townspeople wanted them run out. Others, inspired by Sam Foster's friendship with them, defended their right to live in peace. The town fractured into factions. One morning, a group of women from Mesquite Ridge appeared at the ranch. Marcus tensed, expecting trouble. But the leader, a schoolteacher named Miss Harriet, smiled gently. We brought supplies, she said, and an apology for how you've been treated. Ayanna emerged, surprised. Miss Harriet addressed her directly. You're welcome in our church, if you'd like to come. Ayanna looked at Marcus, who nodded encouragingly. Thank you, Ayanna said. That means much. As the women left, Ayanna turned to Marcus, eyes bright. You see, not all people are cruel. He pulled her close. No, some are, brave enough to choose kindness. That Sunday, when Marcus and Ayanna rode into town together, some people glared, but others nodded respectfully. It was progress. Inside the church, Ayanna sat straight and proud. When the preacher spoke about loving thy neighbor, he looked directly at her and Marcus, and his tone was approving. After the service, several families greeted them. Change was slow, but it was happening. Summer brought the hardest test yet. A band of renegade Apache attacked a ranch east of Mesquite Ridge, killing 2 men. Fear swept the town. A mob formed, demanding Ayanna be arrested or expelled. Sheriff Callahan reluctantly rode to Marcus's ranch. I don't want to do this, he said. But they're demanding she be taken in for questioning. Marcus stepped between them. She's been with me for months. She had nothing to do with this. Ayanna emerged, calm. I will go. I will speak truth. Marcus protested, but she silenced him. If I run, they win. I must face them. Reluctantly, Marcus agreed to accompany her to town. The town hall was packed. Angry faces, shouting voices. Thornton stood in the back, smiling. Marcus and Ayanna stood before the crowd. She's innocent, Marcus yelled. She's been under my supervision since she arrived. A man shouted back, How do we know she's not signaling them? Her people killed good men. Ayanna raised her hand. The room quieted, surprised. I am Apache, yes, she said clearly. But I am not those men. They are angry. They hurt. They kill. So did soldiers who killed my family. Does that make all white men murderers? The crowd shifted uncomfortably. I choose peace, Ayanna continued. I choose this life. Judge me by my actions, not my blood. Silence fell. Then Sam Foster stood. I've watched her for months. She's worked hard, caused no trouble, and shown more grace than most of us deserve. I say we let her be. One by one, others stood Miss Harriet, the shopkeeper's wife, a rancher Marcus had helped last. Winter. The tide was turning. Thornton saw it slipping away and stepped forward. You're all fools, he snarled. She's playing you. Marcus faced him. The only one playing anyone is you, Colonel. You sent her to me as a joke, hoping I'd fail. But I didn't. We didn't. And it's eating you alive. Thornton's face purpled. He reached for his gun. The room erupted. Sam Foster moved fast, disarming Thornton before he could fire. Sheriff Callahan arrested the colonel for attempted assault. As Thornton was led away, he screamed threats. This isn't over, Hewitt. You'll pay for this. But his power was broken. The town had seen his true nature. In the aftermath, the council voted to allow Ayanna to stay as a free woman. Marcus and Ayanna walked out of the town hall, into the sunshine, hand in hand. People stepped aside respectfully. Back at the ranch, they stood together, looking at the land they'd worked so hard to tame. "It's over," Ayanna said softly. Marcus shook his head. "No, it's just over the following months." Their ranch thrived. Ayanna's garden produced medicines she sold in town. Marcus's livestock multiplied. They built a new room onto the cabin. One evening, as they worked side by side, Marcus stopped and looked at her. "Ayanna, will you marry me?" She froze, then smiled. "Yes, if you let me plant roses by the door," he laughed. "Deal." They married in a small ceremony at the ranch with Sam Foster officiating. Miss Harriet and a dozen townspeople attended. It wasn't the wedding either had imagined as children, but it was real and full of love. Years passed. The land softened under their care. Children came, 2 daughters, with Ayanna's dark eyes and Marcus's stubborn spirit. The town of Mesquite Ridge grew more tolerant, though prejudice never fully vanished. Sam Foster became a close family friend. Thornton was dishonorably discharged and disappeared into obscurity. One evening, as Marcus and Ayanna sat on their porch watching the sunset, their daughters playing nearby, Ayanna spoke. "You remember the day we met?" Marcus smiled. "How could I forget?" She squeezed his hand. "I was so afraid, so angry. I thought I would die there." He looked at her. "And now?" She gestured to the ranch, the children, the life they'd built. "Now I am home." Marcus pulled her close. "We both are." As darkness fell over Red Canyon Valley, the family went inside. Firelight glowed in the windows. Laughter echoed into the night. And on the porch, carved into the railing, were words Marcus had etched years ago. "Home, built by 2 hearts." The desert wind carried those words across the valley. A promise kept. A love that endured despite every obstacle. In the distance, thunder rumbled, but this time it brought rain. Gentle, nourishing, life-giving rain. And in the ranch house, 2 souls once broken now danced together in the firelight, whole at last.